What's up, folks? It's your boy Coach Ty back at you with another one. And if you are struggling to build your lats, I've got the perfect video for you. We're going to go through exercises, reps, sets, anatomy, all the good stuff you need to get that back with. Let's get straight into it. Here we go. As I have with my bicep and chest routine videos, I'm going to start off with some key things to know about the muscle, and then we'll get to the exercises themselves. Starting with adduction versus extension. And we're going into the anatomy, and don't worry, I'll make this as quick and simple as possible, but for the lats, the anatomy is very important. The lats can be subdivided into three regions: upper, middle, and lower. And the type of exercise will dictate which part of the lat is being targeted. The lats have 4 functions, but for the purpose of training, only 2 really need to be considered. We'll start with extension. Shoulder extension is exactly what happens during all of the lat exercises you perform, pulling your upper arm backwards. Now, once you pull the upper arm behind your body, the rear delt starts to take over. So if you're trying to keep tension strictly on the lats, stop once your upper arm is at your side. If you want some extra rear delt, then pull the arm all the way behind the body. We should also talk here about vertical pulling, pull downs and chin ups, versus horizontal pulling, rows. You might have heard coaches, trainers, influencers make this distinction when making recommendations for back workouts. I don't see this distinction having a whole lot of use, simply because both of these types of pulling are engaging the exact same function, which is extension. And therefore, both of these things train the lat to a significant degree. In one respect, a row is basically half of a pull down. As you can see here, the exact same thing is happening at the shoulder joint, but with roughly half the range of motion. You also miss out on the stretch position for the lats when performing rows, and we do know from the research the lats can experience stretch-mediated hypertrophy. I am not saying rows are bad exercises or that they don't work. I am saying pull downs, pullovers, chin ups are probably a little bit better. Rows do something for the lats that vertical pulls don't do, however, which is put the emphasis in the contracted position of the lats. So again, they do have their value. I would just program the majority of your lat work to be vertical. Now on to adduction. Adduction refers to bringing the upper arm in toward your body. Think the opposite of a lateral raise. Wide grip pull downs and pull-ups are good for this function, although, excuse me, I've got a unique exercise that I think works at least just as well as these that we'll get to in the exercise portion. The primary function of the lats is extension, secondary would be adduction. We also know that the upper part of the lats contributes to extension mostly, while the middle and lower contributes to shoulder adduction. I'd recommend doing mostly extension and some adduction because most people are more concerned with the upper part of the lat so they can get that nice lat flare, make their upper back look wider. However, if you want to grow your lower lats more, then instead do more adduction than extension. Moving on, hand and shoulder position. Not a whole ton to say here. I would recommend most of your lat training be done with a neutral grip and therefore a neutral shoulder joint. But it depends on if you're training extension or adduction. Shoulder extension is best done with a neutral shoulder joint. Shoulder adduction is best done externally rotated. Since in today's program we'll be doing mostly extension, you'll see neutral grips on the majority of these exercises. Finally, what should we be doing for sets and reps for the lats? As always, I like to base this on the fiber typing of the muscle. The lats seem to fall directly in the middle in regards to their fiber typing. They're slower twitch than the pecs, and biceps faster twitch than the calves, for example. As you can see in this graph put together by Chris Beardsley, the lats fail directly in the middle when it comes to recovery time. So we want to use medium amounts of sets and reps. All that being said, here's the routine. Day 1, we've got the neutral grip pull down and cable row. 2 sets of each, 8 to 12 reps on both, 1 to 2 reps left in the tank. Day 2, we've got the lat prayer, courtesy of Menno Henselmans, 3 sets, 8 to 12 reps, 1 rep left in the tank. And on day 3, we've got the cable pull in, 3 sets, 8 to 12 reps, 1 rep left in the tank. We're going to give the lats about 48 hours of rest in between these sessions if you've been lifting for a while, or you just want to put more of a focus on your lats because they're lagging, or you just want to get your lats as big as possible, as quickly as possible. Feel free to up the amount of sets and increase the frequency. So add an additional set or two and decrease the rest to 24 hours. Pay particular attention to your strength if you do this. If you notice you are not progressively overloading, you're probably doing too much. Moving on to the exercises. We're starting with the neutral pull down. Now here's the way we're gonna set this up. We're using neutral grip as we discussed earlier, so grab a neutral grip V-bar. Also check to make sure the thigh pads are in the right spot by sitting and making sure your legs are pressed into the pad while sitting. Stand back up and take your grip. I like to swing my legs underneath the thigh pads. And now it's time to start your set. Start with your ears between your arms. In this position, let the weight pull on your shoulder joint and look to feel a stretch through your lats. We're focused on the stretch with this exercise, so sit in this position for a second or two, and now initiate the pull. As you pull, lean back slightly and pull the attachment to your upper chest. You should feel somewhat of a contraction through your lats, and this is also why you want to lean back as you pull. If you're sitting up directly, there will be very little tension on your lats at the bottom. Leaning back will put your lats more opposite the resistance, therefore extending the range of motion by a tad bit. Second exercise on day one, single arm cable row. Once you're done with your 2 sets on the pull down, we're moving on to the row. Now this doesn't necessarily need to be a cable row. You can do a machine row. Any kind of machine row will do. And frankly, I prefer a machine row. I'll explain why in a minute though. If you can do them with good form, and most people don't, a dumbbell or barbell row will be sufficient here too. I'm doing a single arm cable row because it's what I have access to at this gym, so let's set up the cable row. We want the resistance coming from a roughly 30 to 45 degree angle, so set the cable up to reflect that. We're doing this single arm in order to reduce the amount of weight you're lifting. Doing this with both arms requires way more weight, which will make it nearly impossible to stay upright since you have nothing really to brace yourself up against. And this is ultimately why I prefer a machine row. There's a pad I can brace myself against, and that lets me focus on the form and lifting the maximum weight possible. With this move, we're focused on the contracted position, so as you're pulling, focus on your elbows and pull them backwards. Get your upper arms to your side or slightly behind you, and spend an extra second in this contracted position and squeeze really hard. Then go into the eccentric position or portion on the exercise. Extend your elbows and reach as far forward as you can. Now the range of motion on this exercise is relatively short, so make sure you can get as much as you can on each rep. What if we could get both a great stretch and contraction on one exercise? Well, I introduce you to the lat prayer. Setup is simple on this one. Set the cable all the way up to the top. We're going to use 2 D handles and pull the handle itself into a neutral position. Put both hands through the nylon strap with the strap sitting underneath the lower part of your hand or even your wrist. This way we don't have to worry about grip. Take a couple of steps back and hinge forward. Put your head all the way through the window. And now that we're in the starting position, we'll begin our first rep. We want to keep your elbows mostly extended throughout the entire rep. Imagine you're performing a pullover. Well, you pretty much are performing a pullover. Extend your shoulders, bringing the handles towards your quads. And as you extend your shoulders, extend your hips simultaneously. The handles should meet your upper thigh/hip area. And contract your lats really hard here. And then begin the eccentric. As you flex the shoulders, flex your hips until you are back in the start position. And spend an extra second here and let the weight pull on your lats. You should feel a stretch in this position. I know this seems like a weird exercise, but hear me out. The start position will emphasize the stretch because you are hinged forward and the resistance is pulling your upper arm behind you. You'll get a great stretch in your lats in this position. Same thing with a regular old pullover. The difference here is adjusting the upper body and therefore the shoulder joint and therefore the lats orientation against the resistance. With the pullover, you get a great stretch and not much of a contraction. However, if you push your hips forward, the end of the range of motion then becomes more akin to a row. And the reason the row is so good in the contracted position is because the resistance is coming from in front of you. So you get a high amount of tension when your upper arm reaches your side. So the lat prayer gives you the best of both worlds, both stretching and contracting the lats to a significant degree. One of my all-time favorite lat exercises. Our final exercise is the pull-in, and this one is pure adduction. Now let's set this up. We want the cable set up at about a 45-degree angle. So take a knee 2 to 3 feet away and put your arm at a 45-degree angle, then eyeball where you should put the cable. You'll be using a D-handle attachment again. Grab the handle and then take up that kneeling position with your arm extended out to your side. You'll want to have a slightly externally rotated shoulder throughout the reps as well. And now we start the set. The form here is quite simple. Pull through your elbow until your upper arm gets to your side. You should feel a very strong contraction in this position. Then fully extend your arm back to the starting point. The line of resistance on this exercise, being the cable, matches the direction of the fibers of the lats, and muscles pull in line with their fibers. I also think, and I'm speculating here, that it is probably better to train adduction when the resistance is coming from the side and not up and down like a wide grip pull down. Again, adduction means to bring the upper arm in toward the midline of the body. So to properly train that function, I would argue that doing a pull-in or pull-in type move is probably better. Probably. Maybe. Perhaps. That's it for today's video. Thank you guys for listening and watching. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know what you want to hear from me next. I am Coach Ty with Muscle Wiki, and I will see you with the next one. Deuces.